How did I get from something that used to look like this to something that now looks like this and hopefully will resemble this when it's done? That's what I hope to show you in this series of videos about the construction of Echo Canyon on my N-scale layout. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. Last week I uploaded episode 1 in this series of videos about Echo Canyon. In that episode I showed you how I sculpted the cliffs of Echo Canyon out of a layered block of white styrofoam. I also described the prototype on which this project is based. If you missed episode 1, you can go back and watch it by clicking on the annotation at the end of this video. Now today in episode 2, I want to show you how I'm creating Echo Canyon Road. Wait a minute. In episode 1, I told you that the area of my layout where I'm creating Echo Canyon is only 10.5 inches wide, and I didn't have enough space to include the road that goes through Echo Canyon on my layout. Oh, by the way, you could call it Lincoln Highway as I did in episode 1, or you could call it Old Route 30, but on Google Maps it is called Echo Canyon Road. So from now on I'm going to call it Echo Canyon Road. Well, I got a comment about the road from William Arsenault after he saw episode 1. In his comment, William urged me to go ahead and try to include the road in the scene. William explained that as a long-haul truck driver, he has driven up and down Echo Canyon many times on Interstate 80. Of course, you can see Echo Canyon Road from Interstate 80. He said that the road is very narrow and that I could add it to the scene in a space 1 inch wide. He said he has seldom seen any cars or trucks on the road. It is mostly used by local ranchers. He concluded by saying, "Give it a shot, Roy. I think you'll be glad that you did." Well, thank you, William. You inspired me to add Echo Canyon Road to the scene. For those of you who don't know, William models the Union Pacific La Grande Subdivision. I'll put the link to his videos down below. And well, in just a moment I'm going to show you Echo Canyon Road on my layout. First though, as my track plan shows, Echo Canyon is located at the western end of my layout, just before the track disappears into a helix that goes down to staging. The peninsula on which Echo Canyon is located is 6.5 feet long. Also, here's 2 photos of the prototype. I want you to see what William was talking about and what I am trying to model. As you can see, the road is very narrow, just as William said it is. In many places, the road has no shoulders. Also, in many places, the scree that has eroded from the cliffs comes right down to the edge of the road, and some of it had to be removed to build the road. The road is crumbling in spots and is generally in a state of disrepair. On my layout, I want to replicate these characteristics of Echo Canyon Road. Okay, let me now show you how I'm constructing the road on my layout. To make space for Echo Canyon Road, I first had to remove some of the white styrofoam that I used to create the scree at the foot of the cliffs. Doing this was easy, although messy, as it always is when working with white styrofoam. Removing some of the scree gave me a space 1.25 inches wide in which to build the road. I decided to use some old sections of Woodland Scenics inclines that I had laying around and a piece of white styrofoam as the base for the road. Using these Woodland Scenics inclines allowed me to easily create slopes and curves in the road. Here I'm test fitting 2 N-scale cars on top of the incline to make sure that I have enough space for a 2-lane road. Now it's time to begin paving the road. I could have used plaster cloth to do this, but since I don't have any plaster cloth, I decided that it would be just as easy to apply 1 coat of spackling paste to fill the open spaces in the inclines and a 2nd coat to create the road surface itself. I have used a lot of spackling paste elsewhere on my layout, and I like it for building scenery, highways, and paved areas. It's easy to apply and easy to sand smooth after it dries. You may be wondering, what is the difference between spackling paste and joint compound? Well, as I understand it, joint compound is normally used to cover the cracks between 4x8 sheets of gypsum boards when building the interior walls of houses. And spackling paste is often used for smaller jobs, such as covering nail heads. Spackling paste seems to be a little drier than joint compound, and it also seems to dry a little faster. Joint compound usually comes in larger quantities and tends to be a little cheaper. But I've used both of them on my layout, and I can't really tell much of a difference between them when using them on my layout. Now I'm installing a retaining wall between the road and the railroad tracks. No such wall exists on the prototype, but there isn't space between the road and the tracks on my layout to do much of anything else. To make this retaining wall, I'm using Midwest Products N-scale cork road bed. Here I've already cut and installed 1 section of cork. I've glued it in place with a hot glue gun and held it there until the glue has dried with Woodland Scenic's foam nails. As you can see, the cork roadbed covers the front edge of the Woodland Scenic's incline. Now it's time to install the retaining wall for the other half of the road. This is what a section of the cork roadbed looks like before cutting it to fit. After pinning it temporarily in place, I mark the back edge of it with a Sharpie so that I know where to cut it. Now I remove it and cut it. Then I come back and hot glue it in place. I plan to paint the retaining wall the color of heavily weathered concrete. The retaining wall is now in place, and I've applied the first coat of dark gray paint for the road. After 3 or 4 hours, I rub a damp sponge over the road. This removes some of the paint from the road surface, leaving it with a very weathered look. Here I have hot glued some pieces of white styrofoam up against the retaining wall to create the effect of a rock outcropping. I would like to do this along the entire length of the retaining wall, but there won't be enough space between the road and the tracks to do this until I widen the layout a couple of inches and move the track a little further away from the road. I'm carving the styrofoam to begin to create the appearance of a rock outcropping. Beads of white styrofoam fly everywhere, but I can easily vacuum it up. Now I apply spackling paste to the rock outcropping. I do this partly to hide the joints between the pieces of white styrofoam and partly to carve rock striations into the outcropping a little later on. Now I'm carving those striations into the outcropping. You can do this either before or after the spackling paste has dried. I've temporarily placed this Rick's Products Highway overpass over the tracks. The overpass won't be staying here because it belongs at Granger Junction on the other side of the layout. It's just a placeholder for the moment. I've ordered another overpass for this location. You will see it when it arrives, and I've installed it here. On the prototype, this bridge takes Echo Canyon Road across the tracks, and the road then ends where it joins Interstate 80. I'm going to continue working on the road surface to achieve the color of faded asphalt that I'm looking for. I will be adding very faded highway stripes on the road and generally making the road look deteriorated and weathered. I will be adding rusty guardrails along the road. Right on schedule, here comes 844 heading up an eastbound excursion train. Well, you can see what I've done. Thanks again, William, for your suggestion that I do this. This project shows that the comments which all of you make down below do indeed contribute to the work that I am doing on my layout. Hopefully, in the future, I can widen this section of my layout where Echo Canyon is located. If I do widen the layout by just a couple of inches, I can realign the tracks here, and in the process, I should be able to place the tracks further away from the road so that I can put scenery between the road and the tracks instead of the retaining wall. Next Saturday in episode 3, I will apply a coat of spackling paste to the cliffs of Echo Canyon. I will then carve rock striations into the spackling paste. And I will paint the cliffs a rusty orange color that I hope matches the prototype. I have tons of ideas for upcoming videos. If you're new here, consider subscribing so that you don't miss any of them. And hit that little bell icon to get notified every time I upload a new video. As always, I want to thank you for watching. Until next time, happy railroading. I will see you again very soon.